New satellite imaging showing Russian forces moving closer to Kyiv. A military convoy now stretches 40 miles long.
Russian forces are battling to take over Ukraine's biggest cities. They launched airstrikes into Kharkiv, a city of 1.4 million people. Today, the two sides sat down for their first face-to-face talks, but the only thing they agreed on was to meet again. And tonight, Vladimir Putin is being accused of possible war crimes. CBS 2's Dick Brennan here in studio with more on that. Dick?
Christina Maurice, Ukraine is indeed accusing Russia of war crimes, bombing civilians and using a thermobaric bomb, one of the most devastating weapons short of a nuclear weapon. That's a violation of international law. And they say that's in addition to targeting neighborhoods with no military value.
Російські сили сьогодні жорстоко обстріляли Харків з реактивної артилерії. Це однозначно воєнний злочин. Мирне місто, мирні житлові райони, жодного військового об'єкту. 2022 рік. Зло, озброєне ракетами, бомбами, артилерією треба зупинити негайно. Знищити економічно, показати, що людяність уміє себе захищати. Я вважаю.
A barrage of missiles hit Kharkiv, Ukraine says killing defenseless civilians. It's another night of Kyiv bracing for an onslaught, with Russian artillery opening up once again around the capital city. But the invaders have not taken a single city in 5 days of fighting. Drone footage shows Ukrainians striking a convoy and destroyed Russian vehicles littering roadways. The Pentagon warns, though, that the Russians will learn from their mistakes.
So they have suffered setbacks, but I don't think we can just assume that they're going to stay set back.
And with a giant Russian convoy closing in, time is not on the side of the people in Kyiv.
I think the next 24 to 48 hours are going to be very challenging for the Ukraine military forces as well as the civilians that are there.
Military analyst Mike Lyons says the Russian army may try to choke off the city because complete capture could be difficult.
The analogy of eating a porcupine is pretty correct when it comes to what it would be like to take Kyiv, even based on the amount of military power that Russia has.
More than 500,000 refugees have fled their homes, with scenes reminiscent of World War II evacuations.
I love my country. This Russia, it's bad country.
Some trying to get out with their babies.
How are you feeling?
Bad, very bad. Child cry. Very bad.
Russia is now feeling the isolation of the world. Stores and bars removing Russian vodka from their shelves. FedEx and UPS suspending shipments to Russia. And most of Europe now has closed its airspace to Russian planes. The sports world is responding, banning the Russian team from soccer's World Cup, even stripping black belt Vladimir Putin of his status as honorary president of the International Judo Foundation.
Putin has been confounded by our collective response. That is why he is resorting to more and more extreme rhetoric.
But President Biden dismisses his nuclear threats.
Mr. President, should Americans be worried about nuclear war?
No. Now, the U.S. has expelled 12 Russian UN diplomats today, and the Treasury Department announced new sanctions targeting Russia's central bank. The move blocks it from doing transactions in U.S. dollars. Maurice and Christine.
Dick, thank you.
Putin has gravely miscalculated. In his abhorrent assault on a sovereign nation, he has underestimated the extraordinary fortitude of the Ukrainian people and the unity and resolve of the free world in standing up to his barbarism. The UN General Assembly will vote later today, and we call on every nation to join us in condemning Russia and demanding that Putin turn his tanks around. Today, the Disasters and Emergency Committee is launching its Ukraine appeal. And every pound donated by the British people will be matched by the government, starting with £20 million.
Will the Prime Minister meet with me to discuss this? And will he amend the UK War Crimes Act? And will he support the ICC prosecution for Putin for his crimes of aggression against the people of Ukraine?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm in principle, of course, happy to meet the Royal Gentleman at any stage, but I can tell him that what we have seen already from Vladimir Putin's regime in the use of the munitions that they have already been dropping on innocent civilians, Mr. Speaker, in my view, already fully qualifies as a war crime. And I know that the ICC prosecutor is already investigating, and I'm sure the whole House will support that.
Pleased to have retired General, Lieutenant General Richard Newton here in studio, which is your first time visiting in studio.
Yes. Good morning.
Good to have you here. There is a lot, and I want to make sure it doesn't go over people's heads who are watching this morning. Allison mentioning the International Criminal Court's now investigating not just Russia's actions as of this week and last week, but all the way back to 2014. What's the difference between what they're being accused of today and the annexation of Crimea back 8 years ago?
Well, as you mentioned in The Hague, the International War Criminal Court is significant. I think that now that you're seeing those who are watching the invasion unfold and so forth, either atrocities that are fact-based or atrocities that need to be investigated are coming to fruition in terms of those investigations, means that Putin is going to really pull out all cards, because the invasion, the momentum for the invasion, there's somewhat of it's slowed down. He's bogged down. He's off his timeline. And so you're going to start to see some atrocities that could compel, the International Court and others to really underscore really what a tyrant Putin is in terms of unleashing his weaponry. Case in point, I have not verified this yet. I'm still looking at my sources. The thermobaric weapon that reportedly has been used in Ukraine. We don't have any location, but that is an extraordinary lethal weapon. You're talking about the vaporizing of humans. It can knock out 700 to 800 size battalion forces in a matter of minutes.
Wow.
And so if that weapon's been used in the battle, then that is a significant step of, again, the atrocities and the lethality of this war.
But we don't know, but we've received some type of data that it's possible that he's already used that there?
It's not verified. What we have verified, though, certainly through media reports, is there are indications that rocket launchers with thermobaric warheads are actually in theater, in the country. In Ukraine as part of his invasion inventory. So, again, not yet verified that, although the Ukrainian ambassador to the United States said that the one weapon was used. The other point, it's not just the type of weapons, it's the targets. There's reports also in Kharkiv, for instance, of shelling of neighborhoods, going after, civilians. Which is also an extraordinary diabolical act of war, but it's also a war crime level act, and so that will be investigated and so forth. Meanwhile, the invasion goes on, and the fact that he's bogged down, he's off his timeline and so forth, I think you'll see other measures as he raises the specter of conflict there.
He is somebody who is well aware of the penalties that not just the U.S. but the world was going to issue if he decided to make this step. Sanctions did not deter him, and they will continue to not deter him. You talk about the kinds of crimes upping his game, possibly for just the sake of ego. He can't stand down now. Was it a mistake by Ukraine to arm its citizens with weapons, people who had no military training, and put them in the line of fire?
Absolutely not, because this is a fight for their survival. This is a fight for democracy. This is a fight for their freedoms. I think we might have said a couple mornings ago, several questions for me have been answered. Number one, will the Ukraine military fight? Yes. Will the civilians stand by their military and take up arms? Yes. Will the President Zelensky of Ukraine, will he fold or will he stay, and will he fight on? He will. Fourth question now I have answered is the role of NATO. NATO's become much more unified, but not only NATO, Adrian, but also other allies and partners around the world. This isn't just a European fight. This is a global fight now. President Zelensky is a global leader. Putin remains a global tyrant. And so I believe that for now, in this hour, this is now the 6th day, this hour, I think it's crucial that the Ukrainian civilians especially are now side by side with their military, and have to be for survival. There are 3 million people in Kyiv right now, surrounded by a formidable Russian army. And so they have no other choice. And by the way, on that note, if you look at Kyiv from an operational standpoint, surrounded, totally surrounded by the Russian army, there is no corridor for the civilians to exit. So they either have to stay and fight or stay and become recluse. They've chosen to fight. I think it's remarkable.
It's remarkable, it's poetic, but there's this harsh reality that I feel in my gut, and I'm not any kind of military strategist, but is the fall of Kyiv imminent?
The fall of Kyiv, I think, is imminent, but I don't have a necessarily timeline for you. The only reason I say it's imminent, or I would expect it to fall, and then we need to understand what would be next, because of just the overwhelming force of the Russian army.
Yeah.
But they do not have, however, overwhelming advantage right now. They're not defending their land. They don't have the spirit of the Ukrainian people. But on that note, you know, war is hell. Sorry for the term, it is. It's very difficult. But there is a significant compassion aspect to this. There are now over 500,000 refugees fleeing to Poland and Romania and other places, as well as there are citizens, Ukrainian citizens outside of Ukraine, coming back to join the fight. This is for their future. And I think it's also very important for our audience to understand that this is real. It is a fight for their freedom, but it's a fight for our freedom as well, to stand up to despots such as Putin.
Thank you so much, Retired Lieutenant General Richard Newton.
This is where we'll be wrapping it up today on Crystalfact TV. If you have a Crystalfact event you've covered, please drop a message on our comment section. And if you like this video, please subscribe.